We can take everything under the sun. We can do all this training, but diet's like 70-75% of all of this. If your diet sucks, if you're not going to ever achieve the levels you need to achieve, but I see how my body just loves and thrives on the fat. And obviously it's the best tasting. Like I do the full fat yogurt now. I do way more whole eggs, just enjoying like every single meal now. It's funny because I find carbs to be the most polarizing thing in the world. I see so many people that are staunch one way or another. There are like the bodybuilder side especially think that you can't build muscle without carbs, and you and I both know that is simply untrue.
That's like the norm too, especially in the bodybuilding space. They're all doing like 30 to 40 grams of total fat a day, if even that much. It's like I used to do the same thing. It's like, man, I feel like dog shit. My hormones are all jacked up. I got no libido. There's got to be a better way. And then went keto, and all that was alleviated via the higher fat protocol. Boom, we're live. Dylan, how are you, brother?
What's going on, man? Good to be here with you.
What'd you work out today?
So I've only done cardio today. I do 90 minutes 5 days a week. And I did elliptical for about 80 minutes, and then I run another 10. I do a morning walk, and then, let's see, today we got chest and traps today.
Man, so 2 a day is and a ton of cardio. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you dieting down for anything?
What's that?
Are you dieting down for anything?
This is just what I do, man. I think I've been doing it so damn long that it's just who I am.
I like it. I take like a minimum viable dose to cardio. I don't do any more cardio than I need to.
You know what? I've been doing it so damn long, but I can't run as much anymore. I'm 43, so the beating, and I like to play pickleball now, so I got to salvage my joints a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Pickleball is where it's at, man. I've never done it, but that's like the hot thing. Everybody's doing pickleball. I've never played it.
You know what? I played tennis for many, many years, so I got like this tennis stroke when I play. So when I'm on, I can play, but if you get off with that stroke, it can mess your game up a little bit. You know what I mean?
I play ping pong on occasion. I guess that's the closest thing I come to it.
I love it. That's a great game, man.
Yeah, man. So talk to me about some background on you, brother. You've got, I mean, you're deep in the biohacking space. You've got a lot of content around hormones, peptides, all that jazz. And you used to compete as well, right?
I didn't compete, but I trained competitors, and I was. So when I started out doing videos, I was talking about really steroids, and then it got into SARMs and peptides before anybody really knew about them. I got introduced to them early, 2011. So there was very few to pick from, you know, and I was one of the kind of forefront people that was talking about them. So I've had a nice head start there, and it's just transcended into like personality online. I had a $500,000 subscriber YouTube shut down. And so that hurt, you know, and kind of rebuild yourself, happened again, rebuilt yourself. So then I pumped it into Instagram and then rebuilt the channel again. And I got to speak at Mr. Olympia this last year at the 60th anniversary. So that was kind of like my pinnacle as a non-doctor, getting to speak with doctors, because they just don't really do that. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, that's when I got introduced to the biohacking side of things. And when I got home, I got COVID. And I was sitting here and I just started digging into it, and I realized, man, this is what you've been like geared toward and what you should be doing, because I was not happy with what I've been doing forever. Like I like making the content, but just it's not really who I am. I'm not like look, I resonate very well with the gym bros. I'm a gym guy. I mean, I live in the gym, but I don't have that same mentality. I'm a science guy. I'm a deeper, like, I look deeper into everything, right? Into nutrition and like physiology, biology, cellular health. And so, man, as soon as I got into this space, everything's went from like here to like, I can't even put it where it's gone in just a few months with the podcast. I got 2 agents. It's going better than I could have ever imagined. And I'm a spiritual guy, man. So I'm just kind of letting God lead me wherever it takes me. And I'm just trying to stay on that path and stay humble, grounded, and just keep helping people, man.
That's awesome, man. I feel like you're in a good space with the biohacking, though. I feel like that's definitely on the rise. There seems to be just a lot of momentum in that sphere right now, and there's just so much interest around it.
It's true. You know, it's funny because I compare biohacking to Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin came out, you look at it and you're like, man, I don't understand this. It's so hard. And it's like, if you took 5 minutes to read it, you'd be like, man, this is the easiest shit I've ever seen, you know? And people will like think that term, because that biohacking term is a little polarizing the first time you see it. I remember seeing people talk about it or mention it, and I'm just like, man, that's some weird stuff. Like, what is this? And it's not like some difficult thing. Now, you can get intricate with it and get into science and like deep into like I was talking cellular health, which I have been studying, but it's a lot of basic stuff, man. Waking up in the morning and going outside and getting in the sun, taking walks, things that we take for granted that we don't do. It's intricate and it's easy at the same time, you know?
It's kind of funny, man. Like I've had a whole bunch of guests on the podcast, and we'll do like a deep dive on various topics, light therapies, photobiomodulation, all this stuff. And at the end of the day, and like nutrition, well, I mean, you can go deep down the nutrition rabbit hole, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so if I was to take the Cliff Note version of all this stuff, it's like, move your body, get outside, ground, which is just simply getting outside with your feet on the grass, and eat real food. I mean, you can pretty much take that Cliff Note version and run with it.
It's not that difficult. It's not. Like I said, we can get super intricate, we can get super detailed, and I'm a data guy. I like to do that. And I like to really like dig into nutrition a lot because it's one of my, look, we can get into that too. It's like I have always been open and admit I've been a nutritionist for 15 years. I started studying nutrition at 11 years old, but the reason was because I had an eating problem and disorder and a body image problem. And I've talked about this openly because I think it's important. And so I'm teaching something and doing the polar opposite because I'm struggling with it. And it just clicked with me right at the same time. I figured out like my guidance with the biohacking, all of this dark hole I've lived in for, 30 some years that I've been doing this. It's like evaporated and gone now. And we can get into like my diet and like your beliefs, my beliefs, how they coincide and how I've changed my view on the personal side from what I teach and stuff. But it's been one of those things that's changed my life, and I try to help piece other people's, lives together to talk about these things so we can fix them, not hide them and get it out in the open. But I think one of the problems people make is they look for this cookie cutter answer, and everything's kind of person to person specific. Like you and I have probably some guidelines we live by and we like, but you also have to, as a nutritionist, figure out what works for each person and test a lot of things out. But I feel like diet, I give percentages, and I'm curious what you think about this. I want your opinion too. So someone will come to me and be like, Dylan, I want to take this shit and all of this. And I'm like, listen, we can take everything under the sun. We can do all this training, but diet's like 75% of all of this. If your diet sucks, you could be hormonally off. You're not going to ever achieve the levels you need to achieve. So I'm like 75% diet, 15% training probably, and then 5% modalities, supplements, SARMs, peptides, steroids, whatever. That's my belief on it. I'm curious where you're at on something like that.
I'm on the same page, man. Like I double down on the nutritional component of it. And it's funny because like the longevity space is really popular right now, alongside the biohacking space. And you got people throwing out all these supplement recommendations and biohacks, and they don't even eat the right food or move their body. And it's like, y'all are missing the low-hanging fruit right there. So like me, I too had eating disorders, and that was kind of like the catalyst for me finding keto before keto was even popular, and then just kind of doubling down on that and getting that perfected for me and then helping other people with it. But yeah, I mean, when you come from a background where what the status quo was recommending is not working for you, and you have to kind of just figure it out, then you're motivated for the right reasons because you know how much it negatively impacted you when you didn't have it figured out. And then when you try to help others, like you're in it for the right reasons, man. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's funny because you and I both know, and I think probably a lot of your listeners that follow you know the importance of fats, right, in your diet. I mean, how crucial they are to every day. And I know that forever. But when you have a stigma in your own personal head and you have developed a fear of things, I don't care what you teach. Trying to overcome that is horrible. I mean, it's like, it's a black hole to live in. It really is. And it's easy for one. How old are you?
33.
Okay. So you're 10 years younger than me. So you may remember some of this, but when I was growing up, especially that low fat stress and that basically brainwashing that we went through, it's hard to ever get over that no matter how much you learn later. Like it really is. As a kid, when you have something embedded in your brain. So anyway, you see the amount of output I'm doing every day, so you can imagine like what kind of burn I'm doing. And on that kind of burn, if you're not getting the proper nutrition, I mean, you're just like withering away mentally and physically, right? I mean, just drained. So you imagine the kind of output I'm telling you, 90 to 100 minutes of cardio a day, steady state, but you know, I'm ripping off 1,300 calories easy on cardio, probably more than that. And then lifting like not powerlifting, but strong lifting for an hour. And then oftentimes getting in a tennis, pickleball, like some other thing too, mowing the grass, taking walks. I mean, and then you consider the resting. I'm burning like over 4,000 calories a day, and I'm eating like 1,600, maybe 17. And the only fat I'm getting is peanut butter because I'm like obsessed with peanut butter, right? So 15 grams of fat, maybe. I'm literally got no other sources of peanut butter because I'm only eating egg whites, fat-free Greek yogurt, probably 12 to 13 servings of vegetables a day, oatmeal, protein powder, and that's about the gist of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a good foundation for hormonal health by any means.
No, not for that, not for mental clarity, not for having a good attitude, not for patience, not for anything, right? And now, so you imagine that's like a 1,700 calorie day of diet. That's on workout days. On non-workout days, I'm even going lower than that, like 1,300. So now I'm like 25 to 2,700 a day, and my fats are from 15 grams to about 125. And my proteins, I try to do 1.5 pounds, so I'm about 275 grams of protein. Now, I don't do straight keto, but I take in a little under 100 grams of carbs. So I'm not in that.
Pretty low carb with your output for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And the majority of my carbs, well, actually all of my carbs, I do a half a serving of pomegranate juice, which is like 20 of those grams of carbs because I'm doing it for my heart because I have some plaque in my arteries from a LP(a) condition. So 20 grams of carbs right there, right? So in reality, it's really coming from one piece of Ezekiel bread with avocado, and then it's like from vegetables mainly. I mean, so that's, and then a little bit in the only thing I have a little off is a protein bar. Like I do the Kirkland ones. I stopped doing the Quest because they have a little sucralose in them and the Kirkland ones don't. But aside from that, man, I do 0.5 pound a day of either bison, elk, venison, or like grass-fed ground beef. I either do 12 to 14 ounces of salmon per day or 16 ounces of cod or sea bass. I normally 5 days of salmon, 2 or the other. For the mercury on the sea bass, you got to be careful. And then I do about 130, 140 grams of avocado. I cook everything in grass-fed butter, SCT oil, not MCT, SCT, and we can also get into that, the differences there. But it's like very fat heavy. And it's funny because I took one of those genetic tests, and this dude come on there trying to tell me that, oh, you genetically, you don't do well with fats and you need 400 grams of carbs a day. And I said, well, that's funny because I'm a nutritionist and I am the polar opposite of what you're telling me, so.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I actually just went onto my 23andMe account today to download the data and then delete my account. And I was looking at it summary, and it's like, yeah, you are not good with a lot of dietary fat. I'm like, man, that's all I eat. But yeah, you put a whole lot of stock in some of those things.
No. I went to a summit, Eudaimonia summit this year, and there was a machine there called a NOE, PNOE, and they hooked me up to it. And that's what triggered me, honestly, because he said, man, your body is just melting through fat. It was like 75, 80% melting through fat and like 20% carb. And then I bought a Lumen and I measured every morning to test. And I've worn CGMs to test that glucose side of things, but I see how my body just loves and thrives on the fat. And obviously it's the best tasting. Like I do the full fat yogurt now. I'm like that fat-free yogurt. Not only does it taste like crap, but they strip everything out of it. I do way more whole eggs. I do whole eggs and egg whites, so we get both, right? But I mean, just enjoying like every single meal now, instead of, I swear, man, I would get up every 10, 15 minutes and go snack on vegetables. And that's it all day. Just ridiculous.
That's like the norm too, especially in the bodybuilding space. I mean, if you were working with competitors back in that time frame, I mean, they're all doing like 30 to 40 grams of total fat a day, if even that much. And it's like really high protein, they'll cycle their carbs, they'll carb load before, during peak week and whatnot. And it's like, I used to do that same thing. It's like, man, I feel like dog shit. My hormones are all jacked up. I got no libido. I don't feel like I'm building any muscle. It's like my joints hurt. There's got to be a better way. And then went keto, and all that was alleviated via the higher fat protocol. And it's like, it's weird because bodybuilders, they're like on the cutting edge of so many things, especially hormonally, all the experiments they're doing. But man, they're just stubborn as a mule and so, steeped and just inundated with their dogmatic thinking towards nutrition that they're probably going to be the last to, switch over to something else.
And, it's funny because the data like shows completely different, but like the mindset that you have when you get locked into it, you're just not hearing it. And you can't reason with the unreasonable, man, no matter what. But I will tell you this, that has been a life altering change for me. And it's only been, what are we in May? So 9 months. And it's just a continuous, like I feel better every single day. And I want to point this out. The stigmas of, fat's gonna, and I'm a cholesterol expert. I have to be because of my own, issues. And you look at my blood panel, it's the best it's looked in I don't know how long. And it's with all of these fats, these bad saturated fats that like I eat everything in butter now. I'm so mad at myself all the years that I lost not eating butter, thinking it was going to hurt me and everything. But, I got introduced to SCT oil because MCT is medium chain triglyceride. And I've got content on short chain triglyceride. And oh boy, that's one of my secret weapons every day because of like the amount of CLA it releases. And it puts me in ultra fat burning mode. And it's so good in your coffee. I mean, I'm drinking it right now too.
So where do you get it? Like, what is it? Where do you source that from? I never even heard of that. I'm not seeing it on the market.
I have some friends, they're called the Happy Healthy guys that I was blessed enough to meet. They actually patented it. Nobody else can make it but them. So they're the only ones that even sell it. So I'll point it out to you and show you when we get off. But it's, I have a little code you can use too. I'm not an affiliate guy. I don't do that. They gave it to me because they're my friends, but I'll just show you. It's amazing, dude. And it's like clarified butter, but it's really difficult to make. And it's a game changer. We got some content coming out on the science that explains the difference, but it's got a really high smoke point, like higher than anything. So you can cook in it so well. And man, it's been one of my secret weapons.
I would assume it's kind of like on-demand energy if you're fat adapted because it doesn't really have to be assimilated by the body. It's not breaking down that long carbon bond. It's just instant.
It is. I think it's a six carbon, maybe. I don't want to say, I think because the mediums are 8 to 10. Yeah. And the shorts, it's a 6. So man, I'm telling you, I don't know how you do it or if you drink coffee or not. I always wait 90 minutes in the morning before I have a coffee at least. But dude, I go right out and go for a walk after I kind of do prayers. And now that I grew a beard, manicure my beard because I've never had one before. But, like morning routine and then go walk and then come home and have it. And man, it's, even on days where I'm really kind of sluggish or tired, it's just instant, and I can go straight down and do cardio normally after that and get going.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I'll try, man, for sure. Where do you think, you got a pretty good pulse on the public. Where do you think people's attention is right now as it pertains to diet, nutrition? Like what's hot at the moment?
I think now more than ever, I see far more variety, but there's a big push on protein, more than I've seen lately, at least in the biohacking space. There's, and I think rightfully so. I see, but it's funny because I find carbs to be the most polarizing thing in the world. I see so many people that are staunch one way or another, like so hardcore. There are like the bodybuilder side, especially, think that you can't build muscle without carbs. And you and I both know that is simply untrue. But in the biohacking space, the main focus is always either on protein or fats. And I've blessed that I got that, content on fats from them. But and you see a lot of influencers really that are hard now, more on like ancestral and more beef and more quality meats and animal proteins. I'll be honest with you, I've pretty much changed most of my protein like powders. I'm not a big protein powder guy. I use it in my coffee and when needed, but I go create my own, and I do beef protein isolate damn near and everything. I do a little bit of whey in my yogurt that I've saved because it's so good in there. But I'm really an animal fats person, and I've noticed a lot more of that being put out and a better understanding of how vital the nutrients that you are coming from animal fats. There's a big push on creatine, protein right now, more than I've ever seen, at least in the past 15, 20 years, where I'm like, yeah, now we're talking a little bit. But I find that you either got people that are like super pro carb and think that people that are anti-carb are like, it's almost like Republican Democrat with carbs. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I could relate it, like in the scene. And I'm like, listen, man, everybody's different on what works for them. Relax. There's facts that will show one way or the other. And it's cool. I like to listen to people's rationale, what they find, and compare and contrast. So if you come and tell me, like, and I'm not saying you say this is just an example, being a keto person, why carbs are like bad in this way, and why I'm going to look at it, I'm going to analyze everything you tell me and go, you know what? Robert's right on this. I missed this. And then I'll bring to your attention, have you ever thought about looking at this? And then maybe you have an answer, maybe you don't. But see, the way that I operate and the way that people that are like deeper thinkers, they don't get angry, they don't get offended, they rationalize and figure out and ask questions. And I find that if I ask you a lot of questions and you get irritated or you get annoyed or angry, that means you really don't know what the fuck you're talking about, or you're trying to push something on me that's untrue. And if I can go back and forth with you and you're real calm and you're like, that's the kind of conversation I want to have,
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, man. And you mentioned earlier that you're a spiritual person. Like, I've been kind of doing a deep dive on that lately, and you start asking hard questions around that, and people that are, on the other side get real defensive real quick. And it's just like, man, like I come from a very, science, steeped background. My dad's a doctor. That's just how I was raised. So I'm super analytical and thinking, but then like I'll try and just openly talk to people, listen to what they have to say, and not even debate them, like not even come at them aggressively, but then they'll just get automatically defensive with certain things. And it's just like, I don't understand this. I'm just trying to learn from you.
So I will tell you this when it comes to that. I don't have all the answers. So there's questions I've been asked where it's like, I don't know 100% how to answer that. I know what I feel. I know what I believe. But when you are spiritual and you understand Holy Spirit, what that means. I've been going to church my whole life, and I didn't really understand that till like a year ago, what that meant and what it was. And that's really God's spirit within you. And you learn to listen to that. And by God, you come up with words you didn't know you had. Honestly. Mm-hmm. And I have answers to things. I've been asked tough questions like, well, how do you explain when kids suffer and die, like this happens? And I'm like, look, there's answers that you don't always have, and there's reasons that we suffer, and there's reasons that we go through things in life and that things happen, that it's not always God's will that that's going to happen. And there's reasons behind this. And we were given the gift of free will for a purpose and a reason. If we didn't, and everything was programmed a certain way, what would everything be like? What would happen if there was no such thing as failure? How would you learn success? If there was no such thing as overcoming adversity, well, where would we ever go, or what would we ever do? We'd be robots that all do the same thing and nothing correlates into anything. It's just a big blob of what? It doesn't make sense. So look, dude, I don't want to suffer at all. I don't want to go through any of that stuff. But had I not, I don't know what the hell I'd be doing right now. You know what I mean? And I am more equipped to deal with stuff now than I've ever been, and more accepting when something comes, to know how to rationalize to get around it and say prayers and think about what exactly is coming from within on how I can handle this. You know what I mean? And some people can't wrap their heads around that, and some people want an answer for every little thing that is just not present. And I try to explain things in the best manner that I possibly can. And, I don't get angry with anybody. Everything's a fair question, Yeah.
I've tried to take a really stoic approach to how I go through and live life on a day-to-day basis, but all with this like spiritual foundation. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense. I mean, stoicism isn't religious at all. Like, anybody would benefit from the principles, in stoic thinking. Mm-hmm. And if you embrace that in tandem with like this spiritual underpinning, it's like everything just makes sense. Like, you're able to just function on a much higher level, as opposed to getting mad about things that you don't have any control over, or just getting anxious about things that are outside, your wheelhouse. It's like, life's too short for that shit.
Absolutely. And okay, let me tell you something. When you actually put a value on time, you stop caring about all this shit. You know what I mean? You just don't care. I mean, look, I went to prison at 28 years old with a 15-year prison sentence. Okay. I had to start my life from scratch at 30. So nobody understands time. I mean, I don't want to say nobody, but I understand the value of time. There's people who have been through far worse than me, so I don't want to say that. But my point is I got blessed to get out of that early, to get a lot of blessings along the way. And had it not happened to me when it did, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't be in this space. I wouldn't have gone this route. I veered off course because of my behaviors and my actions. And I have to, once I accepted accountability for that and looked in the mirror and said, dude, stop blaming everybody else. You did it. Nobody made you sell drugs. You know, nobody made you. I was modeling and acting, and I got into that lifestyle and I couldn't keep up. And that was my way of trying to keep up and, you know, be a hot shot and have everything. Okay. Nobody made me do that. I made those decisions. So I have to deal with the consequences of taking myself off course and doing what I wasn't supposed to do and fix it. And I did, you know, and I can't blame anybody but myself, but I take every single positive from that and I use it as fuel, and I never forget. So when I start to pout or bitch or complain or think about something, I quickly snap out of it, man, because I remember, and I remember what it's like. And I don't take anything for granted, not anymore. Every time I even leave the gym, I thank God just for letting me go be able to work out, have the luxuries I have to work out in a nice gym. These things you should never take for granted. And when you don't take them for granted, you actually enjoy them a heck of a lot more too, because you actually appreciate it, you know?
100%, man. Did you adopt that improved outlook while you were in prison, or did it hit you after you got out and you had to adapt to everyday life again?
I'll tell you this. I'll never forget this. I had this conversation yesterday with a guest on my show that was a psychologist, and he started, it turned into like an analyzation of me on my own show. But I remember sitting in there, and I can pinpoint where I was. I can remember the day, what it was like outside, everything. And I was on the phone with my mom, and I was complaining about, like, they just strip searched me. And I was complaining about how bad it was in there, and like scumbags that were in my room I had to stay in, and like, I don't belong in here, and da-da-da-da. And she was like, you do all of this complaining, and do you realize that you don't care about the people you hurt, the people that are worried about you? How selfish are you? Like, why are you only thinking about yourself? And you're not learning any lessons. You're not getting any better. I never forget that conversation. Never. I remember exactly what it was. And then I still to this day remembered, dude, I'm an only child, and I had the best parents in the world. They weren't rich, but they maxed out credit cards to give me everything that I wanted. My dad coached me in everything. My mom was a teacher, and she bought me every nice clothing she could, even with no money. You know, we weren't broke, but they didn't have that kind of money. I had every piece of equipment, every training, everything. And she asked me, were we really that bad at parents? And I was like, I remember sitting there in silence, and she's like, hello. And I said, I was starting to cry, honestly. I said, no. I said, I'm the piece of shit. I'm the one that made the decisions. You didn't make those for me. I said, but I'm going to fix it. And, you know, my dad is always like, you know, you talk a lot, you never really do anything, because I did that back then. And I made it a point. There's a couple things I made a point of, which is where I'm going with this. I don't say anything anymore if I'm not going to do it, or I have no intention of doing it. If I say it, you can count on it. And if something happens, I'll at least say, hey, we're going to figure this out. But I don't do that anymore. I make my word gold now. And I do that with pretty much everything, every business thing I do, everything with my wife, everything with my family. My word is gold, man, because I know what it's like to be a big talker that can't deliver, and I don't ever want to be that again. And I just took those two conversations, and then I spent time getting closer with God and closer with self-thinking in terms of overcoming everything that was going on in there and not letting it get to me. And man, it kind of just shaped where things have gone, you know?
Yeah. No, it's crazy, man. Like, we look back on the hardest moments and the toughest chapters in our life, and like, once you get through those and you have that perspective, it's like very few people would want it to be done differently. Like, they appreciate it for what it is and what they learn from it and how it shapes them. And like, that's powerful, man. Like, anything that comes to you in life, and that kind of goes back to that stoic thinking. Like, how can you use this to benefit yourself and others. And there's like always a way to use it to your benefit. You just have to figure out how to do so.
You know what I always tell people? Even if you're talking to a dipshit, man, you learn something. You learn to what not be like. You know what I mean? Like you can take something from everything. And I always tell people, I wouldn't take it back. I'm glad I went through it. I don't recommend it. I don't ever want to have it happen again. It's not something I recommend doing. But dude, if I'm being totally honest, I needed it, and I needed it bad. I got out of everything, and everything got handed to me, and I basically felt invincible. Like I could just do anything, and I was always going to get away with it. And I finally didn't. And after that, and then my dad, passed away unexpectedly, several years later, and he was like my best friend, and the way everything hit me, and you realize, man, how precious time is and how nobody's invincible. Anything can happen to you. And now I just try to use all of that as fuel and help myself to help others grow with that. And that's why I share my story with no embarrassment, no like regret. I used to think, man, what would have happened if I hadn't done this and that next? I used to do that to myself all the time. And I don't do that anymore, man. I don't ever think about that anymore, because if I go back and change something, everything right now is different. We're not having this conversation. I guarantee it. And I am not doing any of the things that I love to do right now. So that's how I feel you have to look at life, and adversity and challenges should be welcomed. Opportunities to overcome should be something you look forward to. Because when you achieve something like that, man, dude, that feels great.
Yeah. And it's real. Like you might have this superficial feeling of invincibility, early on in life before you've gotten that perspective. But like once you actually have true self-confidence because you've overcome hardships and adversity, it's like, that's really empowering. That's the real deal.
It is.
Then anything can hit you in life, and you're like, man, I may not know how to figure this out right now, but I'm going to get it figured out. I've got the tools at my disposal to figure this shit out.
That's right. 100%, and that's what it is. And that's it. Honestly, it's helped me to study more, to be more appreciative of, and to appreciate the things that I'm learning now more. It's helped me to actually absorb information better, like all of it. And I equate a lot of that to the diet changes too, honestly, like the mental acuity, the sharpness, and the ability to stay focused for such long periods of time, because I'm never thinking about food or anything anymore. And it's a combination of a lot of things. But when spirit and body and everything aligns, you can do way more than you actually think you ever could do. And and then it doesn't come as a shock anymore. You don't develop a cocky attitude by any stretch, because like I said, I know something could be gone in the blink of an eye. And I always tell people, dude, you went to bed one night, you woke up and everybody told you you're not going anywhere, everything's closed and COVID's here, so don't think that can't happen. But I feel very strongly about everything I do now. I feel very confident in my abilities. I don't doubt myself, and I feel strong mentally, and physically too, but mentally. And it's a good place to be. Days aren't perfect. I'm a human, man. I got bitches and moans like anybody else, but I handle it a hell of a lot better, dude.
100%, man. What's got you excited now? Like what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh man, I got so much going on that gets me excited. The people that I get to talk to every day is one of the biggest things, because I have been so blessed, and I get to go all over the spectrum now. When I was doing what I did before, it was like I was very stuck in this hormone, steroids, bro stuff, and it was a very, how do I reinvent myself? What do I come up with? Man, I get to talk to people that do everything. I've gone from the most intricate studies in cardiology, and I get to talk about peptides so much now in the open. I get to talk about different modalities, therapies. I get to help people and teach them like about intricacies in blood panels and things they need to look for to save their lives, and how to overcome misleading things from doctors or doctors that are inadequate, point them to naturopathic doctors. And I'm certified now to do a lot of this. And having that ability to make a real impact, like, bro, I was convincing myself for years, oh, you're educating people on steroids and helping them, if they're going to use them to take care of themselves and trying to get them off. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to convince myself I'm such a great person and doing such great work. I'm doing great work now. because I'm using my platform to bring different walks of life, psychologists. I mean, I even bring some sneakerheads in there because I love sneakers, but I have the ability now to platform everybody and have an audience that appreciates it and watch it. And I can reach out, and then I get to come on shows like yours and meet people that I may not have ever met before, you know? And now it's such a wide audience. It pumps me up daily, you know? And I mentioned I got a couple agents. I get to work with really, you know, awesome places. I like, for instance, you got glasses on. I'm partnering with Viva Rays, you know, for their glasses. I'm opening a vitality clinic. We're going to be opening like next week. And so I have these opportunities I never had, and I'm making a big impact, man. I'm partnering now with this app for peptides, and I'm going to be a part owner in it. And it's the most intricate, detailed thing I've ever seen, and laying out every aspect to teach people how to use this, what it pairs with, how much to buy, how much to reconstitute, like making it simplified for people so they don't have to ask these questions or do things wrong. And knowing that I have the ability to reach out and touch people of all different ilks of life, and that I actually am not bullshitting and have this knowledge base, and I'm able to bring people to that. I don't know, man. For me, that's about as gratifying as it can get.
Yeah, no, it's making a difference, man. Like when you get emails from people who you didn't even work with directly, but they heard you on a podcast or saw some of your stuff on IG or whatever the case may be, and it's like something you said totally changed the trajectory of their life for the better. It's like, man, when you get those kind of emails, it's like, okay, this is what I'm called to do right here.
Yeah, you never understand until it happens. You know, I was on, I'm sure you know JJ Virgin's podcast, and I was talking about LP little a and cholesterol, and I've had so many people email me and write me asking for help. And you know, it's hard for me now I'm stacked nonstop, but I'll check because you know, when you got big accounts on Instagram and you get that message request, you don't really see them. And I just go through and try to find those and look. And when I see the reactions of people that are thankful for a 5-second answer, now I can't give out, people ask me for diet plans and shit like that. They expect you to work free. That's different. That's like, come on, man. Like, really? Mm-hmm. But the people that just need a push or something positive to make them think that it's not the end of the world, or a little bit of help, and you can do that, it's pretty damn awesome. It really is, you know?
As far as the cholesterols and stuff goes, did you catch that keto CTA trial study that was in the buzz on Twitter for a while?
No, but I'd love to hear about it.
Well, I don't honestly know that much about it, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think Nick Norwood, Dave Feldman, a few others were putting out I think it was like a year-long analysis of people following a ketogenic diet, looking for lean mass hyperresponder symptoms. But then, like, this is where I'm going to get in trouble speaking on it, because I haven't had them on the podcast since it was released. But there's been just like a whole bunch of flack thrown their way for it being a poorly designed study, questioning their credibility, all that stuff. So I don't know, man. I was just curious if you had dove into it at all.
No, I'm going to have to. Actually, when we get off, I'll have you kind of tell me what it is, and I'm going to get into it this evening.
Yeah, I'll send you what I know for sure.
Yeah, because you said it's a relation between the keto diet and, did you say CTA scan?
Yeah, so I think it's called the Keto CTA Trial Study, I think is the official name. And it was done by Budoff or something like that, Nick Norwitz, Dave Feldman. Dave Feldman's obviously put out a bunch of work around the lean mass hyperresponder theory of his. He's been on Peter Attia's show, all that good stuff. And there's been a lot of, just unknowns around what they were predicting versus what the outcomes were and the accuracy of the reported outcomes. So they're in a lot of hot water with some people, but I don't know if it's even warranted hot water. And I'm pretty close with both Dave and Nick, so I'll have to get both or one of them on the show again to kind of go give me the details, the run by run. But it's just weird, man. Like all these studies show certain things, and again, kind of going back to that polarization, like people just gang pile up on these folks that are trying to do good work. So it's hard to really know what to make of anything these days in a lot of sense.
It's hard with studies. So I take studies and I look at them because they are important, but you also have to look at who's in charge of them, control groups, how they're like functionally done, because you can skew a study however the hell you want, dude. And I am a real life data guy, and I like to see things when I got thousands of clients that I've tried things on. You know, you can't just take yourself as the only piece of data too, which a lot of people do, which I just can't stand. But you have to be careful taking a study at face value right away, and you have to look into it because people are going to try to do things to push things one way or another at times.
Yeah.
Some data's done really good, and some of it's done really with a really bad motive, and it sucks because it's hard to sift through that. You know what I mean? And you got these people on both sides that want it to be a certain way, and they have a very political style way of convincing you, you know, with their verbiage and their bullshit. And guys like me, you can't do that too, you know, and so I don't like guys like me. They hate guys like me. And I'll have to look into it and see, because I have spent years now putting so much time and talking with some of the best, most recognized cardiologists in the world that are not bought and paid for, that I have gotten so much data and understanding from. It's insane. So I speak on this quite a bit, actually, bro. Like, it's like my second language anymore with cardiovascular health and cholesterol, and you know.
I'd be keen to get your take on it for sure. So I'll have to get you the links that I have, and we'll see what you can make of it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'd be curious too. Like, I'm obviously in the natural bodybuilding space. It's honestly, I don't know that much about a lot of the exogenous hormones because I've never played around with them as a natural bodybuilder. But when you look at, I mean, you've worked with these people. I'm not against them. Like, a lot of people are, you know, hard one way or the other. I've just not used them personally. But when you look at people that are competing with performance-enhancing drugs, the long-term outcome of a lot of that, I mean, you're in the longevity and health and biohacking space now. So I feel like like some of the stuff that they're doing has to conflict with what you know from like a overall health and wellness standpoint, I would assume.
It's 100% conflict. Here's the thing that I struggle with is, okay, there's a lot of angles that I could go with this, but I'm just going to do my best to be as polite, but yet as honest, because dude, I'm not the guy that tells you what you need, like what you want to hear. I'm just going to tell you what you need to hear, and that's it. So let's look at this factually. These guys, there are some that know how to cycle properly, that will say, oh, you know, my blood panels are great, and I know how to do this with, you know, responsible usage and whatever. And I don't disagree with that. It's totally true. The problem is there's no focus or understanding of long-term health. I don't care what your blood panel looks like right now. I care about the damage that's accumulating over time and what it means and what's going to happen. And I'm worried about the risk versus reward ratio. These guys don't have that understanding. So many of them only care about the moment right now and what are we getting out of this. So I ask you, if you have to do all of this shit to your body, put all of this stress from all of these different types of hormones. So let's look at an oral steroid, for example, like a Winstrol, even an Anavar, which is supposed to be a lighter steroid, which in comparison to an Anadrol or a D-ball, yes, it's lighter on the side effects, but it doesn't mean that it's not a toxic oral steroid. So what happens is, to make a steroid oral, it has to be altered. So it's a C17 alpha alkylation, so it can pass through the liver. Well, what's that causing? It's causing toxicity. So what does that toxicity do? Well, it damages your liver, it damages your kidneys, it raises blood pressure, it screws up your cholesterol, it can contribute to atherosclerosis, plaque buildup. It's suppressive to your natural tests. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on, all right? So with the toxic side, oh, well, I'm going to run Tudka and milk thistle, and I'm going to do this and protect my liver and my kidneys. And it's like, okay, that's great, but that's not stopping it. That's maybe mitigating a little bit of the damage, but as resilient as your organs are, what do you think happens over time when you just keep doing that to them and just punishing them over and over and over? The blood panels get worse and worse and worse. You get poor cellular health. You cause possible problems with your gut and your microbiome, and then you degrade. And as you ruin mitochondria and cells, you slowly start to die. Mm-hmm. And cells become senescent, or they're toast, they're full of garbage, and then it can spew out into your body. And you shorten your lifespan. Even other steroids that aren't toxic orals, they're suppressive. They can cause a slew of other things, like especially Tren that everybody wants to run. Well, yeah, Tren is unbelievable on what you can accomplish with it. But what does it ultimately do to you? It fries you. Shit, it fries your brain on top of everything else over time. It can cause cognitive impairment on top of health and cardiovascular issues and so many other things. So I can go on and on about the side effects. Is it worth it? What do you get? So what do you get when you get a pro card, honestly? And look at it from a rational perspective.
I mean,
How many people?
It doesn't really do much.
Well, that's just it. What do you get with a pro card if you're not in the top, I don't know, 2 to 3% in terms of money or value? Aside from saying that, and it's a great, dude, listen, it's a bomb accomplishment. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from the accomplishment because it's awesome. But my point is, you get a pro card, you do all of this, you shorten your lifespan by 10 to 20 years, if not more, and you degrade your quality of life over time because you certainly are. When you start using all of these steroids, you go look at anybody over time, all of these big bodybuilders, former wrestlers, whatever, they're in wheelchairs, they can barely walk, they look like shells of themselves. You're degrading quality of life in a variety of facets. You're more susceptible to injury. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. Now, if you're looking at the short term, hell yeah. I mean, you look amazing. You don't always even feel great. There's so many side effects with some of these. Gynecomastia, development of breast tissue in men and water retention. And I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. And then when you put all this pressure on your joints and your ligaments and tendons, which you certainly are from massive growth too fast, that's why people are so susceptible to injury. I can't rationalize or justify the risk versus reward. And even if you're making $1 million as a pro, how long is that going to last? And is it worth sacrificing some of the best years of your life when maybe you don't have to work, you could retire, you could spend time with your family and you can't even barely walk or move? What if you got grandkids you want to play with and you're in a wheelchair or you're walking around like Ronnie Coleman, or look at Lex Luger or people like that. I mean, it's perplexing to me. And those guys get so pissed off at me and, I'd rather, I had a guy the other day, I was doing a live with Jay Campbell and he leaves a comment and says, well, I'd much rather not die skinny. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, man, go ahead. Die 20 years too early and be big, congratulations. They're going to, at your funeral, they're going to say, well, he died big. I mean, I just, that's the rationalization you get. And I'm not saying all bodybuilders are like that, but there's so many that are. And that's why I wanted to get out of that because it's so toxic when you're doing content and shit. It's like, if I'm not 275 pounds, they're questioning my credibility. You know what I mean? And taking shots at me and all of this. But then if I go one right, you can't please everybody and everybody's pissed. And if you make a recommendation, you're a scammer. And I'm like, I haven't even sold anything. How am I a scammer? Because I recommended a product. Now you're a scammer. And it's like, you can't win, So I do my best to be as objective as I can,
Yeah, that's all you can do, man. I mean, I look at it and it's like, I know a lot of guys that are on the gear, and from a psychological standpoint, like when you experience how much stronger you are, how much quicker you recover, how much more workload you can put out, how much bigger and fuller you appear in the mirror, it's like, it would be very hard to cycle off of that in the healthiest manner possible because at that point, psychologically, you're just addicted to how great you're looking.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of guys never cycle off. And like the compounding effect of that over a relatively short period of time, I mean, I just can't justify that in any form or fashion. And then when you look at those people 20, 30, 40 years later, if they're even alive still, it's like, I mean, they can't move, they have poor joint health, like they just don't look great. Like I'm playing the long game with it. And I feel like from a natural standpoint, like bodybuilding at its core, I think is, that paired with good nutrition is close to we found the fountain of youth. But like natural bodybuilding being the caveat there with real whole foods, like I'm playing the long game. And I feel like if you do that right, there's no reason you can't keep getting better as you get older.
Dude, if people would just have that mentality and, here's another thing. You use that shit, you run a cycle, you do have to come off because if you stay on, you're just killing yourself. So when you come off and you're not keeping those, you're not keeping those gains. You run something like Masteron, which is a muscle hardener, and it's like a sculpting, and you're getting striations and you're getting veins in your abs you've never seen. Dude, you're not keeping that when you stop taking them. And the longer you run them, they don't just keep working forever. There's this thing called myostatin that occurs, and you can't just keep building muscle forever. and these things they have a shelf life on how they're going to work. And the more you run them, the more you're suppressing yourself and you're not getting anything out of it. So not to mention these guys that run steroids so young and they're putting themselves on TRT, they're slowing their growth. And so I've had thousands of clients at this point now, and I would say 80% of the men that I get are all in their 40s, 50s that have a regret of using steroids when they were too young. Mm-hmm. These guys get so mad at me, and I'm like, dude, listen, you don't have any idea what's coming. And you might think like right now, for instance, oh, I'm never going to get married, or oh, I don't ever want kids. Meet the right woman and then have to go tell her you can't have kids, and explain that. And, some women may be accepting, but some are not going to want to do that, that you strip them of that. And that's just one example. I don't think people really think long-term enough, bro. And it's troubling. I understand it's hard when you're younger to think that way. But I wish that it was conveyed more to have that kind of like conceptual thinking, because if you don't think that way, you just don't know what's coming, Yeah. You just don't. So
totally agree, man. There's a big push right now in like TRT and HRT for people that didn't abuse, performance enhancing drugs in their younger years, but just like, as a way to improve health as they age. What's your take on that for both male and female?
So, am I a proponent of TRT? Absolutely. But, caveat, is it misprescribed and often used with no reason? Absolutely. If you come to me and you tell me, Dylan, I'm so tired and I know and even my testosterone number's low. My job, if I'm a real pro, is not to go, oh, you need TRT. It's to take your blood panel and go, for instance, this is just an example. Oh, shit. Your SHBG, your sex hormone binding globulin, it's sky high. That's bounding up free testosterone, which is in turn having this, negative effect. Let's fix this. Let's see what happens, because we might be able to fix this right now. You may not need it, And that's just one example, but there's a lot of things on a blood panel that I would go through and look at and go, well, we might be able to fix this and you might not need it. Mm-hmm. A lot of these clinics are just taking people in and just putting them on it. Do I find that there's been a lot of bad information on long-term, problems with it and stuff? I think that that's antiquated to people taking too much, misusing it, things like that, because there's a lot of benefit there. But you should, there's a lot of people that get put on it that don't need it. And I don't think people realize when you're on it, you're on it. You're on it forever. You don't just run TRT for a year or two, stop taking it, and think you're going to be okay because you've suppressed your natural testosterone. It's not going to fix itself. You're not going to take Clomid and run a PCT and fix it. You're not. And it could be fatal in severe instances for low testosterone, but regardless, your quality of life will be trash. So taking it unnecessarily is not a good thing. Am I a proponent though? Oh yeah. Yeah. If necessary. Absolutely.
Is there as we learn more, as we have all these advances in technology and science and biochemistry, and we start to see the long-term effect of taking TRT in an appropriate dose, do you think it's moving the direction of everybody should be on it at some point as they age? Or is it are there certain outliers who would never need to get on it?
There's outliers. There is. I see people that they're anomalies, but even guys in their 60s and 70s that'll still be in the 500s and feel great. And I would say even if look, I don't like it too low, and I really don't like how Quest or whatever lab, they change their numbers all the time and they keep getting these averages and spin them. And I think they're full of shit, to be honest with you. And it seems like there's this desire to keep men less masculine anymore that I just find disgusting. And that's a whole nother topic for another day, but I think it's really bullshit. And once again, you can't get something like that over on me, but there are people that I don't want to put anybody on it unnecessarily. And if you're thriving, if you feel good and your numbers are okay, even as you're older, there's no reason. There's not. And, even with women, I find it extremely beneficial, but because women don't need a lot, sometimes they're too quick to put women on it too. And it's I'm not going to sit here and tell you a natural testosterone booster is going to fix you low testosterone. I used to do that because I worked for companies that embedded it into my head that was possible. And now I understand, no, Could it give you a little help? Yeah, but for women, you might want to try that first. Try a little natural testosterone booster, see if it elevates your number 30, 40 points, and you may not need it, TRT. It's very possible. And sometimes with women, it's a progesterone issue too, and there's a lot of things with women that you got to look at. And I've really started to work with a lot more women and learn, like, I've had menopause experts and, people that I've worked with, and I have tried to get my audience to be closer to 50-50, and I'm a mama's boy, and like my daughter's like, and my cat, and all these women that I'm very protective. So I want to teach women and help women too. So one of the things I'm trying to explore, but listen, I'm sure you know this, but for people listening, yes, testosterone is the male dominant hormone, but we have to have estrogen. If we crush it, it's going to be a problem. And if we have excess, it's a problem. Same with women, estrogen dominant, but you still need a balance and you still need testosterone, right? And there's a lack of understanding on both sides, men and women, on the necessities and the functions of these hormones in our bodies.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. It's interesting. It's kind of like, it's the Wild West with some of these clinics though, man. Like I get horror stories from clients that come to work with me and they're like, yeah, I got one lab panel. My doctor prescribed a bunch of TRT and haven't heard back from him in like 18 months. And I'm like, good gosh almighty. That's the norm, it seems.
It is. The clinic we're opening is not going to do testosterone. It's more like on the peptide and naturopathic health side and the stuff that I really believe in, and I'm very, very versed on, and what I spend a lot of my time on. And I am such a peptide advocate, and I feel like there's so much bright future there. The more that we learn and the more that are developed and the more that we see from them. And, I don't know how much of my stuff you watch, but I do a lot of discussions on like GLP-1s and explaining them, how to properly use them, how to properly eat on them, and why people have trouble with them. And then I get into growth hormone releasing hormones, and see, these are the things I'm willing to use. I won't use even SARMs anymore, even though I've been a big advocate of them over the years, because there's no reason. We don't need to put all this stress and strain on our bodies. Like you said, we can eat good, we can bust our ass, we can put in the work, but peptides, they can give you a help without hurting you most. There's side effects on some, but most in general, you would have to really do some abusive manner of use to have problems. And I'm a big proponent there, and watching where they've come over time it's sweet.
Is all the bureaucratic red tape around peptides starting to clear, or what's that going to look like going forward?
It's hard to say, and it's one of those things where I think I don't study the politics side enough. I'm actually on a seed oil committee with Maha, but I don't go as much because of my time. But I know that at least the people in now are very pro peptide use. But you never know what the agenda. I don't trust any politicians, bro. I have my beliefs. I have the way I live. And of course, I don't like to get into those arguments, but I like the focus right now being on health and better health. And I think there's good people in there that have good intentions, but I always have this trust factor with any fucking politician. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but I can tell you this, there's a lot of pro-choice. And I mean, when I say choice, I mean pro-choice and us using different types of medications. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about that. I think, and I thoroughly believe that you should never be told what you have to take and you need to do this and you need to do that. It's your decision, dude. It's our life. That's why I had such a problem I got no problem with someone wanting to take a vaccine. Go for it. It's your choice, but don't be telling people they have to. Don't do that. Like, what is this? Yeah. When you start telling me that, then I know for sure there's some bullshit going on. You know what I mean? So I just believe we should all have a choice.
Totally agree. You mentioned seed oil. That's the interesting one because, like, you got the Maha movement, really doubling down on seed oils. It's been kind of in the keto carnivore dialogue for quite some time. But it's funny, man. You got people in the bro dieting evidence-based community that are just like totally knocking all this pushback of seed oils. They're like, oh, seed oil is totally fine. No need to avoid them. So there's so much conflict online around these things that you would think would be relatively common sense.
Yeah, I know. Hey, to each their own is what I always say. If you think your blood panels are checking out, and by all means, man, do you. I'm not a fan, but I listen to everybody. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'll listen to your data all day long, and we can go back and forth on it. You know, if somebody thinks that, and I think a good discussion is always beneficial. You got to question everything, you know?
100%, man. I'm kind of a big proponent of just like doing things in its simplest essence. You know, like when you look at how seed oils are manufactured, whether or not the data shows it's good or bad, like I typically don't gravitate to putting food in my body that was previously used for motor oil lubrication. You know, like probably not a smart idea.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that myself. When you see where things are derived from, and it sounds like you just said, I call me crazy, but I think it's rather common sense. That's probably not ideal.
Probably not. Probably not.
No, I love it, man. I love it.
100%, brother. Well, shoot, man, I know you got a busy, crazy schedule. I'm not going to keep you any longer, but where do people go to find out more about you and dive into your world, man?
Yeah, I'm easy. Everything with me on social is at Dylan Gemelli. Dylan Gemelli podcast, Apple, Spotify, everywhere. And then on YouTube, Dylan Gemelli Biohacking is the name of the channel. So I'm putting out a lot of content right now. I'm making a big push on the content side, and I think I got some pretty damn good guests on you're going to want to listen to.
Nice, man. Well, I will definitely do so. I'll link out, make it easy for people to find you. Keep killing it, brother. If there's everything I can do for you, man, you just let me know.
I appreciate it, man.
See you, bud. All right, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed that episode with Dylan. We dove deep into all things hormones, peptides, all that good stuff. And we've put out several videos and content around that topic specifically. If you're interested in that, check out this recent episode I did with Leanne Vogel, and we dive into hormones and hormone clinics and how many are doing it incorrectly and really hindering people's health and overall well-being and performance going forward. Appreciate y'all.